Hi, my name is Ankit Thapar. Today I'm going to go over the assignment 3. So basically in this assignment we developed a UDP based logging system. So basically we developed a logger which our client code can use, and then that logger functions basically communicate with the server and send the log messages to the server, and then that server can save that to the file, like in our case server.log file. So that's like basically overall what the system we developed. So first of all I will go over the code and then I will demonstrate how the communication is basically happening. So first we have this logger.h file. This is just a header file for our logger function for our logger. So we just have the log level and we just have the the declaration of the functions like initialize log, set log level, which will go over on the logger.cpp file. So in this file, first of all, we define the server IP and the port to which we will be connecting, and the logger will be communicating to that address. So in our case, we are using the same machine. So we are just using the loopback address, just the 127. So basically it's like communicating with the local host kind of thing. And then we have the global variables, like we have the server address to just store the address of the server. So first of all, let me just go like in a sequence wise. So first of all, we have the initialize log function. So what we are doing is, first of all, we are creating a socket for communication. Obviously we need a socket through which we can communicate, we can send and receive. So we're just getting the socket file descriptor here, so just validating, and then what we are doing is we are setting the server address. So we are using the server port, the macros we have defined on the top, and the server IP. So and then just again the error checking again, so that it's a valid address or something, and then we are basically creating the receive thread which will run independently in the background, and then we are passing the socket to basically to that function. So let's go over the receive thread, what basically it is doing. So receive thread is something which is going to run like in the background, like kind of an independent thread. So what it is going to do is going to wait and receive messages from the server, because the server can send messages like set log level and something like that. So any messages server is going to send, it's going to receive it. So what we're doing is, so here we are converting it to a file descriptor, basically int, because the type is void. So we're just creating to int because file descriptor is basically integer. So just like taking out the socket file descriptor. So and then we have the buffer line just to store the message, and then we have the client address, so we can store the address of the client. Basically in this case it's the server which will be sending us the information, and then this is the loop which run indefinitely, like it will keep running unless basically is running set to false. And then what we are doing is, so we are using the log guard here. So the thing is, we just want to make sure that when we are reading the data, we are just like protecting the shared resources, so that no two things can read the same resource at the same time. So basically sometimes it can lead to running racing conditions and everything. So just to prevent that things, we are setting the log so that only one thread or one process can read a particular thing at one time. And then we are just receiving the message fd, and we are storing the client address, basically in this case server's address, in there, and the message in the buffer. So if we are checking like again the message, if receive length is greater than 0, if it is greater than 0, so basically we convert it to a string, and then we see that if it's the set log level, because in our case definitely the server is just sending set log level, but we are just trying to verify if it has the set log level. And then what we are doing is we are trying to extract the log level. So whatever the log level, maybe it can be 2 3, whatever the user entered, so we are just extracting out of it. So that's basically what we are doing is, so extract otherwise what we are doing is, like if we are not able to extract the log level, we are just printing the error on the screen. So that's basically what I would say this is doing. I think log level is defined on the top, yeah. So it's like a global variable, so we just set it the value here, so we extract it and then we set it there. So that's basically receive thread what it is doing. The same way like the logger actually sends, like the way it receives messages from the server, it also sends the messages to the server. So we have the log function. So the client, basically the client code in our case, it's the travel simulator application. It will send us, like it will use this log function, it will send us a message, a line and everything information about that. Then we check if the level is less than log level. So because we know there is a log level set, let's suppose it is set to error, so any messages less than error will not be logged. So that's the thing, just a condition here. And then we are just extracting the timestamp and the time now. We're just using the basic functions, and what we're doing is again we are using the log guard, because right now we're going to send to the server, so we just want to protect the shared resources. And then basically we are using the send to send to the server address. So that's what we are doing. So that's basically this, and apart from that we have the basically, that was all the function. The set log level is just a function to set the log level, but very simple. and when we exit the log, basically we are trying to is running is equal to false, and then we are waiting for the receive thread to join and finish executing and join, and then we are just closing the socket connection. Let's go over the log server.cpp. So what it is doing, so again it has also has a receive thread. Again, when the logger is sending message to the server needs to receive it. So the functionality is pretty much similar. We are expecting the file descriptor here. Again, we are using the receive from function to receive the message, and then if it's greater than 0, like we're just checking the length, that okay, if we receive some number of bytes or something, and then we are again using the log guard. The thing is, once we receive a log from the logger, we need to write it to the server.log files. So we just need to make sure that only one thread is accessing that file at a particular time. So then we open the file for reading purposes here. So log file means I already set the name in kind of server.log. So we just open it and we then write it. We're using the flush function so that the data is written immediately and there is no delay or something like that. So that's pretty much the receive thread function is doing. Let's see the main, how the functioning goes. So seeing the main, again we are creating a socket. Obviously we need a socket for communication to happen, and then we are basically creating the server address, setting up that structure, and then we are binding the socket to that basically address. And that's like the similar way, like anyway when we set up the server, we bind it to a particular address, and then we are just running the receive thread in the background. I already explained that. And then again we just give the user three options there. They can set the log level, dump log file, and or maybe shutdown. So if they say they're going to enter the log level, we take the input and then we use the send to send it to the client, and then otherwise we just open the file and dump it to the screen, just the basic code. And then otherwise for the shutdown we just shut down. So that's what how it is, kind of the code is functioning. Let's jump to the application part, I think, which is a more interesting part, to be very honest. Let me just see if it has logged out, because sometimes it get logged. Okay, so it has been logged out. So I already have compiled, basically I have already so the code is compiled. We already have our executable log server. Let's first run the server on the screen. Okay, so /log server, let's see. Okay, the server has started running. Let's now run the client here so that it can send the messages to the server. So let me just start it here. So we know the time is around 11:01, so we can even verify the timestamp. So maybe some message would have been logged by now. Let me just dump the log files. So we can see at 23:01, basically it's around 11 p.m. and 11:57, 56. You see, like the messages have been logged. Okay, let me just set the log level. Because right now by default it is debug, so every message is getting logged. Maybe let me set the log level to maybe, what do you say, 2 maybe for the error, so that only error and the critical gets logged. Let's see what happens. So I just set the log level to be 2, and let me just dump the log file. Let's wait for some time so that error messages can get logged. And if I dump the log file, so we can see like all the messages, you see, like around the latest messages around this time, they are all error type because we just filtered it, right? There is no debug. If I just again dump the file, we can see there are error because these are the only messages that are getting logged, and the debug ones were at the before when we didn't had set the log level. There are no critical messages because that condition is never reached. So this is basically how it works. Basically that's the functionality. So we can keep seeing, like we can keep dumping the log file. We can see like it's continuously logging. So right now it's at 55 seconds. So you see 55, 54, 50. So it's continuously doing that. Let me just shut it down so we can basically close the server and everything. Let's see, do we have the file now, the server.log. So yeah, we have this file. Let me just close the client too, because anyway the server is not running. So I just close the client. Let's just try to view this file, server.log. Let me just maybe use vi or maybe cat or anything will be fine. Server.log. So if we see this file, it has till the very end, I think 11:03 right now it's the current time. So this is the last entry it has, and we can see the last ones are just error, right, because we set the filtered there. So that was pretty much the application. So we can see we run the client, the logger is logging the messages to the server and it is saving to the files. So basically all the functionality is getting implemented. So if I need to mark myself out of this, I think functionality wise I will give myself 10 out of 10. Everything is working, and even the understanding part, I think I understand how the crux of this application works. So I'll definitely give myself maybe around 9.5 out of 10. So yeah, that was pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Thank you. Let me just end it.